was and is to win the blind to Christ and to train and equip them to win their fellow blind. Now, I was born, I'm not part of the organization, but the founder was a New Yorker named Ralph Montanus. Some of you older folks may have heard of him. America's blind evangelist. Well, there were a lot of blind evangelists, but this guy was first to be on radio on WOR, first WMGM, I think, and then WOR. And he used to spell his name Montanus, College Point, New York. That's all the mailing address you need. And he's kind of a big dude, so we always used to have, he took it in jest. We'd say Montainous. Such was Ralph Montanus. I mean, he was a wonderful man. And his radio program helped in my coming to the Lord. But I grew up in a wonderful home, a decent home, wonderful parents who tried to teach us right from wrong, but they were not churchgoers, let alone Christians, and so I never heard the gospel, not even after my father's death. He died when I was in middle school. I was born with a disease called retinopathy prematurity. It used to be called retrolental fibroplasia. There's no cure for the disease nor the pronunciation. Someone asked me, how long have you been afflicted? I said, with what? I'm a normal human being. The only difference is my eyes don't work. At least they don't see. But you hit me in the eyes, they'll feel the pain as much as your eyes would. They might even see stars, but in a different way. Don't try it. Well, you have to get through lucky. As a young age, I was born in New York City, and I grew up I spent 4 years in Greenwich Village, in what is now, I don't know if it's part of Little Italy or not, it was back then after World War II, on King Street. And near us was a publisher on Varick Street, and every day I could hear those presses, swish and hum and swish and hum, and I used to go outside. Even one time when I was 3 years old, I went out in my birthday suit early in the morning and started playing in the cars, because people parked their cars and kept them unlocked. You could do that back then. And some policeman found me and took me. I was the first blind streaker that ever was, you know what I mean? I didn't care. I got on my wet pajamas and went outside the house, started going in the car. The policeman found me and said, "Yes, sure." Went back to the door, and my sleepy-eyed mom answered the bell, and the policeman said, "This your son?" Oh, I'm sure I got brailled on, but I guess I don't remember it, but I don't remember it, but my mama and I used to have a good laugh over that. Every time she told me the story, she just laughed to high heaven. We moved to Alexandria, Virginia when I was 4, and then my dad and mom both found jobs there. My dad did at the Pentagon, and then my dad moved us to Hyattsville, Maryland, because the Maryland School for the Blind had a much better standard of education than the one in Virginia, and furthermore, it was closer. So we lived in Hyattsville and College Park, and I grew up in the D.C. area. At the School for the Blind, we had chapel every day, not because it was Christian, far from it, but that was just the thing to do. So that was my experience with religion. I mean, and then there were Braille magazines. I remember one called Wee Wisdom. Great magazine of stories, but some of that other stuff in there was awful. I mean, it was a cult. I mean, so I should have called it We Was Dumb, you know, because, you know, something like finding the Christ in ourselves, and God is blessing you now, and all this kind of stuff. I won't even mention the cult from this, you know, but it was. But I didn't buy the religion. I just loved the stories. Well, my dad died when I was in the 7th grade. And in my 9th grade year, the boy came from Milford, Delaware to the School for the Blind as a student, and he looked like, he seemed so serious and so grave, so, you know, one of those, the King James Version says, be pitiful, be grave, be sober, and all this and this. And I thought, that fits him. You know, and he came up to me after hearing Charles Fuller, the old National Revival Hour, the old preacher on the radio, you know, Charles Fuller. He came up to me afterwards, he said, "Are you saved?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And he began to talk to me with his no-nonsense approach. I mean, it was very direct. If you're not born again, you're headed for hell. He was right. The boy became my roommate. We became good friends, fast friends. To this day, I wonder what's happened with him. In 1963, in April of that year, I was in the 9th grade. That dates me now. That shows it dates me. And I remember kneeling. I came back home from the Boy Scout troop, long since disgusted with scouts. I only made it as far as 2nd class. I hated this, you know, because the room was too small, and the kids were too noisy, and everybody smoked. The scoutmasters, some of them smoked. I couldn't see anything for the fog of the room, you know. I got back down. I went to that dorm that night, and I got on my knees, and I looked at my life. I didn't like what I saw, and I said, "Jesus, save me. I don't want to go to hell." I didn't know all the terms, personal Savior and born again. All I knew was I needed Jesus, and I didn't want to go to hell. But that's okay, because Jesus took